Hi everybody, my name is Sarita Scherpereel and I am not your mother's realtor, and this is my podcast, Shit Just Got Real Estate. And as always, I'm joined by my best friend, client, and colleague, Megan Osberger.
Hello everyone.
So today's episode, we are going to be coming in with some hot takes on what you need to do to get your property ready to list.
That's right. I think a lot of people were kind of told, you don't have to do this last spring. But usually you have to, and you should either way.
Because of the spring market.
Yeah,
It was so hot. It
was
was in such the seller's favor that a lot of things that are usually considered best practices are not the things that we would need to do in a hot seller's market. Yeah. It was more about getting your property on the market quickly. Yeah. Now, let's say that you're trying to sell your property in a market that's a little bit more amenable and you're able to do it with some time and consideration. These are my top favorite things to recommend sellers to do. And we'll talk a little bit about, I think, a variety of things. But the list is really long, typically. So we wanted to narrow it down to 5 things that, like, hey, if you don't do 100 things to get your property ready to list, these are the things you really want to focus on.
Yeah, and they're the things that a lot of them you can do in advance if you're like thinking about it. Or if it is like a market like this where you're looking but you couldn't sell yet. Like, you need to know what you're buying to really want to sell your house because you might not be able to find something else. You can start doing this stuff in preparation. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And okay, so I guess let's just dive right into it. Megan, you want to hit us up with
number 5? Yeah, declutter.
So
do this anyway.
I know, and exactly. This is kind of what we were just saying. Like, these are things that are just best practices to have, just in case. You know, you did decide to list your property. You're not living in a hoarder's paradise.
Mm-hmm. And, like, you know, it's about to be the holidays anyway. Get rid of some of your stuff. You'll be glad you did. You're never going to be like, oh, no, I cleaned my closet.
No. You know? Half the time I'll, like, clean my closet and I'm like, oh, yeah. Where have you been, sweater vest?
It's like between three hangers, like in the very back of your closet. Yeah, you always do. It's like Christmas morning on its own.
Yeah, I've got like, well, in this particular place I'm living right now, I have 2 closets filled with stuff. Look, I was a hand-me-down queen for a really long time, especially when I was a poor artist. My sister was making good money as a CPA, and so anything that wasn't on trend or posh, she would give to me. Mm-hmm. And so I just started hoarding all this stuff that some of it I'd never even used. Yeah. And so when I was decluttering after I moved into this place, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much, like, really great things. Like, Ann Taylor's not what it used to be, but at the time it was like, oh, it's all Ann Taylor. It's really nice. Now, I know
nothing changed about Ann Taylor. What changed is that you have more money now.
So it's not as fancy. Yeah. So it's not as fancy, but, like, I don't even know, like, where hot girl Kale now shops.
Urban Outfitters?
No. Zara. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I only buy things from Zara after they go to a thrift store. Because no matter how much money I make, I still think I will always really like thrifting. Oh, I like thrifting. 2 days ago, we were in Andersonville, and I bought this really cool painting at like an antique thrift store.
Right. But don't do that if you're about to go sell your house. Don't go thrifting.
Don't go. Yeah,
wait
until that should be a tip number 6.
That's number 5A.
Yeah, number 5A. Okay, so yeah, you want to declutter your property. Now, for me, this is not just your closets. You also want to go through your exterior. If you have like a bunch of garden gnomes, maybe consolidate them down, or just remove that community. Yeah, put it in the garage. Like, evict. Get all your evictions taken care of any happy crap you have in your yard.
Maybe you can put them in your neighbor's yard and just like be like, yeah, I don't know what they're doing.
In Texas, it was really popular, and I don't see this much here, maybe sometimes in the suburbs. They used to have like a flag of the month or of the season. So if it would be like Easter, that flag would come out. They'd be like, Happy Easter with the rabbit. And then if it was like 4th of July, it would be like a 4th of July, or obviously it was like an American flag, but most of the time the flags were like specific to like happy holiday, whatever it was. Get rid of that shit.
We had the geese in my neighborhood.
The geese?
Did you guys have the weird little geese that they would dress in different costumes?
No.
My family never had one. This is very much not my mom's thing. That was really big in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
There were these geese. I don't know why it started. I honestly, the blank looks on your faces, I'm like, what was happening in South Bend? I thought it was nationwide.
Right, no. Specific to
I
South
guess
Bend.
not.
Yeah, so whatever like yard tchotchkes you have, geese, flags, what other, I don't know, funny, weird things you had in Wisconsin over there.
Kayla's like, your neighbors were
We had a
freaks.
Virgin Mary statue in our
Oh
garden.
yeah, a lot of Virgin Marys.
Oh yeah, from Three Catholic Girls, this podcast. Yeah, I'm sure. I think we had like a cross somewhere in our front yard.
But yeah, stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with it.
Nothing wrong with it, but
we're gonna get into this later.
the less that you have
Yeah.
in your property on the exterior is really going to help show what your property's potential is. And the more stuff you have out there, the harder it is to kind of understand and visualize what it is they're actually buying. Because typically the garden gnomes aren't going to be a part of the deal. Whatever geese you have out there are not going to be a part of it. So if they're not going to be a part of this isn't something that you're going to keep, and it is just adding a little bit of clutter to it, just get rid of it. And I know that's like also very easily said than done, but a big part of your move has to be letting go of the emotional component of what your old home is so that you can also shift into a new space, which is why this is reason number 5 on our top things that you can do to list, because typically this is the hardest for people to do.
Yeah.
It's the most like I guess it pulls on the heartstrings the most, a little bit painful sometimes.
And it's time consuming.
It's time consuming. So get it done early. You know, if you think you're going to move next year or 6 months from now, just start going through things, start cleaning things out.
And Google where you can donate stuff, because if you're like me, otherwise it's just in your trunk for weeks and weeks. You're like, oh, I'm getting to that. And then it's just a different form of hoarding.
Yeah. Well, and as 3 Catholic girls, and my mom works for the Archdiocese in Lubbock. I sounded
really fancy.
fucking fancy for a second. And I wish it was that. It's Lubbock, which is a dust bowl. I haven't been in 3 years because every time I go, like the second I get off the plane, I get an insane allergy attack from all the cotton fields that they have over there that are just dust. Catholic Charities is a really great place to donate items, and then they also give it out. It's a little bit different than the structure at what's the other popular one? Salvation Army, Red Cross,
where they sell it.
Yeah, where they sell it out. So it's a little bit different because Catholic Charities, they do have thrift stores that they also sell at, but a lot of times it goes directly to people in need first. And then the city of Chicago and a lot of other areas will have where you can donate in the little green boxes. That's also a great place too.
Yeah, and there's like for-profit recycling things of cloth, which if like it's stained and whatever, you can put it in there and it will get recycled instead of just thrown in the landfill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's always better.
Yeah. All right.
Alrighty.
Number 4. This is really big, and everyone's realtor does not do it. Fire those realtors. Get someone who does this.
Yes, and this show is not a pitch for you to work with me. I want you just to be successful. I want you to be successful at what you do. Thanks for the pitch, man.
But seriously, you're paying them. They need to come do this.
They should be doing this. And it's amazing to me how many times I'll be working with a buyer or I'll be doing the listing and they've already bought and sold before, and then they'll say like, oh, my realtor didn't do this last time. To me, it's common sense, but I've worked on some of the top teams here in the city, and I know a lot of good teams are doing this.
Yeah.
But you should be walking through your property with your realtor, sometimes after you've decluttered, or maybe if you're just trying to think about what your property value would be. Your realtor can point out things that maybe you don't notice anymore.
Should we tell them about mine?
Go ahead.
When Sarita came to my house, which she'd been to 1,000 times, and we were walking around, I'd done a ton of work to get it ready for her to come and also tell me what to do. She's like, Megan, you can't have all of these boxes of Kleenex and things of lotion everywhere in your house. She's like, people are going to get the wrong idea.
I don't know what it is about a box of tissue in a photo, but everybody immediately thinks, oh, I know what you're doing in that room. Or whatever.
I just have like sinus issues, you guys. But Apparently that's not what everyone else is using their Kleenex
you have
for.
chronic sinus issues.
I have chronic sinus issues and really dry skin.
And dry skin. And you also can't take anything to really aid that.
Yeah.
So I think it's just like you have tissues everywhere. But we didn't want people thinking that it was...
a jizz palace is what
I
believe
think I
you were
was going to say it. I know, but I didn't want to say it because I told Megan, I was like, you want to remove the tissues because everyone's going to think you live in a jizz palace. And it's kind of hard when it's like, yeah, they're...
I didn't even think about it because that's what I think of as like, oh, I'm a good host. I'll put the stuff out for my guests.
To other people and also my own
Now
needs.
I'm like really rethinking that generally.
And honestly, you're welcome, audience, because now you're going to think that too every time you see tissues in a photo. Yeah. But I think it just, one, I have a perverse sense of humor, so there's that. But two, so many times I'll walk into places with buyers and they'll be like, tissue next to the bed.
I can't believe that. I don't know why. It shocks me.
I know. I have tissues next to my bed.
Tissues everywhere.
Lotions, like 15 different types of lip balm.
Just a lot of bottles of prescription pills. That's in ours. Move those. Don't leave them out, everyone. Maybe even like don't leave them around. I don't know.
Oh, and that also, this used to be, I know this is not on our notes, so surprise to you guys. Mm-hmm. A few years ago, stealing prescription medicine was like kind of a big thing in real estate. That they wanted you to watch your buyers. You would tell your sellers like, hey, make sure you have any prescription medicines like locked up. I would not have thought of that, but I guess I
guess so.
Yeah, if you had something that might have been enticing to somebody else, and maybe this still is a thing, and maybe with COVID.
Hope you guys like antibiotics.
Anybody need amoxicillin?
Oh yeah, but no, seriously, I think that's great advice. It's scary. It's hard having people who are strangers in your house.
Yeah. So you just want to make sure that if there's anything that needs to be, put away, that's locked up, that might be perceived or wanted.
Yeah.
Look, I've gone into properties before with buyers, and you as a realtor, when you're with your buyers, your job is not only to make sure that they're obviously not stealing prescription medicine, but you want to make sure that you're also taking in the property, noticing all of the things that are going on with the structure of it, the functionality, any leaks, all of that stuff. You're taking it in just as much as the buyers are. So you want to think about babysitting a little bit, but you also want to make sure that like you're not missing what you're also supposed to be there for, which is the business of it.
Right. And that's why we recommend a realtor comes to your place too, so that they've seen so many houses. They know what you need to do, and they know how it should smell.
Yeah, and I think that's also a big
and what that can
important thing. So let's say you go into a lower level or a basement, and you know that it smells like water, but maybe the sellers have had no water to disclose, or maybe they don't even know it, but you can smell it, and then you maybe start poking around and find there maybe had been water at one point or another. That pets, odor blindness, and what is it, the Glad
or whatever, your nose blind.
Yeah, nose blind. Yeah, that is definitely a thing. I've gone into properties before where with buyers where you can tell that the sellers have maybe just made some really decadent, food, and you're like, oh, but
can't do that.
It's a lot to air out. And then also too, you're just kind of like, I think that there's a balance between the space smelling like a home and smelling yummy or smelling like a McDonald's. You just kind of want to make sure that you have the balance of that. But to me, smells when you're walking through with the realtor is more about like odors that might be harder to get out. And pet odors is really a hard thing, because if you have carpet, that could be really tied into the carpet. So at that point, especially if maybe you don't notice it and you're a little bit oblivious to all the things that you've been living with, maybe it's a good time to do a steam clean of the carpet, or just maybe think about removing the carpet. So again, these are kind of things you talk about with your realtor as you're working through potentially listing.
And your agent is going to tell you, if you do this project, that's sort of our next thing. If you do this project, this will be your price. Versus if you don't, that's fine. We just need to think about that in your list price.
Right.
Like, you want to put your best foot forward. Maybe painting is really easy. That could be something. Maybe you have a shitty kitchen, but they're probably not going to say, oh, you need to redo your entire kitchen.
Yeah, and if your realtor does tell you that you need to redo your kitchen, I think it's, well, for me, I have a little bit of a different strategy than I think most do on this topic. I think you want to consider that into your listing price. So if you know that you have a kitchen that there's no way you're going to be able to fix or maybe even paint because you have children, or it's a complete inconvenience.
Or you just, you don't want to live like that.
Yeah, but you also don't want to design for your future buyers. So let's say you go in and you paint everything white, and then they come back and they say, oh, well, we would have loved that beautiful, pine look you had or whatever. So you don't want to cut yourself any, disservice or in terms of what projection of taste they may have. But at the same time, you want to make sure that it's clean and it looks good. So if your kitchen is not at a standard of the market, like, this last year and a half, it's been all about like white kitchen cabinets or blue or gray, something with a little bit of color. If that's the market standard and you're selling maybe a dark brown cabinet in the market, that's also dated and gently loved, I say go about it on a price perspective so that you're just discounting what the listing price would be considering that kitchen remodel. So your agent would look at the market comps for the property and then just kind of slightly go underneath what that is. And look, I'm not going to try to tell, as I'm thinking of this, I'm like, don't tell if there's another realtor out there listening, I'm not trying to tell you how to do your job, but I just think you don't want to design for your future buyer.
Well, and like, if you go into a house that someone has flipped, that's going to be one thing, and you'll know that, oh, wow, all this stuff is new. If you go into a house where everyone lives in it and they have a brand new kitchen, you aren't necessarily, sure, they can say, oh, it's a brand new kitchen, but it's not going to have the same feeling.
No.
Because it's lived in. And
lived in.
And there's good and bad to that. But actually, we're about to get into that. So maybe we should take a break.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we'll get back.
All right. We'll be right back.
Thanks.
All right. So we are back. And we are going to get into our third thing that you could do. Number three.
All right.
To do before you list.
Yeah. De-personalize. You want someone else to think, I could live here, not, oh, I'm at someone else's house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So depersonalizing just means you start taking down maybe photos you have of you, the family, whatever, dogs, pets. You want to be able to have the buyer really envision themselves in the space, not just see the life that you're living and creating in that space. So it gives them an opportunity to really see how they can make it their own. And oftentimes, this is why too, when you go into showrooms, even at Walter E. Smith or Ashley Furniture, all these kind of furniture stores, it's not like they have a bunch of photos. They might have some generic stuff that's out there, but it's all going to be very minimalistic. So the less that you have out for most buyers, the better, especially people who are maybe not as visually inclined. The less stuff you have in the space, whether it's yours or you've gone through your big decluttering, the better.
Yeah, and they tell you, if you Google this, they're going to say, take a third of the stuff out of your closet. It's the same thing as kind of with your furniture. It's going to look bigger if you don't have a ton of really bulky furniture. That doesn't mean you can't have your couch anymore, but it's just something to think about. If you don't need to have a storage ottoman take it out and put it in your garage or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with all of this that I'm saying, I have kind of an interesting story that's sort of a caveat, and just the complete opposite happened to my family.
This is like a parenting book where they tell you one thing and then they immediately tell you the opposite thing. That's what we're doing.
Yes, and now I'm going to tell you why sometimes it can come out in your favor that it's not quite ready to go. So my parents were in the process when I was, I think, freshman in high school. We had lived in one home for kindergarten until I was in high school, and then we outgrew that space maybe 4 or 5 years before we moved out. It was getting really tight.
Yeah.
So there was a new development not too far away. They started the process of new development, which a lot of times, when you have new construction, that can take a year and a half to 2 years. So we were waiting on this house to be built, and then we also had to sell the home we were living in, which I don't know how my mom didn't like just start eating her marbles, because like, I think at that point, like, it was just incredibly stressful. Oh, and then just to add some like flavor to this, I was in high school at one school, my sister was at middle school at one school, and my brother was in elementary at another school. So my mom was driving across county. She was basically an Uber driver for 3 kids at that point, and trying to like put this house on the market and everything. So it's been on the market for a hot second. It's not selling. We're getting a lot of showings, but we also put it on during the school year, which you shouldn't do in a lot of markets, because buyers.
Do you mean the beginning of the school year?
It was on in the school year.
Okay.
So like it like started, I think, September, October.
Okay.
So the school year had already started. You really want to have your property on the market like in the summer or end of spring.
Right.
If you're trying to kind of sell in between the school year. Which like in Houston, which is just like, Houston's for breeders. So if you like kids, if you like kids, you like chaos, go to Houston and make some. That's basically, I don't know, at least a big part of like what I did down there. Not what I did, but what I experienced down there was just families and family oriented things. So we have a property on the market. It is now Christmas. And how I remember the story, which I think when I was telling you guys this story, it was a little like delusional. So I'm just going to go with my version, because I'm sure my family would be like, I don't think that's exactly right. But what I remember is we were getting ready for church to go to a Christmas mass. So I believe it was like a midnight mass, but that it wasn't at midnight, which I told you guys that, and you were like, yeah, that's a thing.
Normal. They do that.
There's actually
We're
like,
all tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then we had like a proper midnight mass, which was like a 3-hour ordeal. Like it was a lot. So, we were getting ready to go to like a later mass in the day, and we had this last minute showing. This family was in town. They were looking in the neighborhood with their kids.
I would be so mad if I was their agent. It's Christmas Eve.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah.
I'm just thinking like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
That's
Christmas Eve showing.
Well, and that also, this is why I have not committed to anything on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Because every New Year's, I'll have a showing.
They're just saving you from yourself
Yeah.
of making terrible New Year's plans.
Yeah, no, well, George was like, hey, let's go to the Sky game. And I was like, I don't know yet. Because I know how it's going to be. Somebody's going to be like, oh, yeah, mom and dad are here. Or, I just came to town and I have to see this property.
Yeah.
So that's probably what happened to them. And then their agent
Yeah.
was like, well, I could. Let's see if the family can. All right. So it's Christmas Eve at our house. We're all floating about the house trying to get out the door for mass. We have 5 people living in the house. Myself, my brother, my sister, my mom, my dad. My grandparents were over, so that's 7. My aunt and uncle were also in from, I think they were coming in from Lubbock, so there's 9. And then my other aunt and uncle, which lived close, I think my uncle was there, and then one of my cousins. So I think we had 11 people in this small 3-bedroom, 2-bath ranch house.
So it's the beginning of Home
suburbs.
Alone.
So yeah, it's but like also like the poor version of Home Alone. So like we didn't live in a fantastic like open concept like beautiful.
They're all just in the foyer of Home
Yeah,
Alone.
no, it was like it was crowded. So it's my turn in the bathroom. I'm in the bathroom. I'm running around in a towel, and they're doing a showing, and I'm just like upset because I can't find the blow dryer. The buyers are coming in. I've gone out of the bathroom, and I was like, well, do you like want to see it? And I'm standing there in a towel, and I'm also then like dripping wet, like a sopping bloody dog. They walked through the house. They were really kind and nice. They talked to my uncle. I vaguely remember them talking to my uncle who was eating puppy chow. I do remember
yum.
that because
Yeah.
that
How
was
can you forget?
yeah, and that was like the thing I made was like puppy chow at the time. So they talked to my uncle. Anyways, the showing happened, whatever. And then about a week later, we got an offer from them. We go under contract. And I remember the buyers, and I don't know why we had so much contact with them, and specifically me. And maybe this is also too, I'm sort of painting myself into the story, and like the realtor in me is like, yeah, I remember that, but maybe this is all just like hearsay. So I do remember the buyers telling my mom one of the reasons that they liked the house was that it actually felt like a home.
Oh, yeah.
And I
Makes sense.
think, well, you see it at Christmas. There's all these people are drinking, there's puppy chow everywhere. Like, it does. It felt like a home. But like
Puppy
maybe
Chow's the aphrodisiac that got him in the mood to buy this house.
But it was basically like really awful. Like as a realtor, I think back on that showing, and I would have never agreed to it. I would have said, no, I'm sorry, they have like 50 people at their house. There's no way you guys are going to get in there. We made it work, and it happened, and they bought the property. And it was like, just again, it went against the grain of everything you want in a showing. First of all, as a buyer's agent, I don't know if I would have agreed to, okay, we'll knock this out while you're getting ready with all of these people around.
Yeah.
Because how are you going to see the house? Like, I don't know how they actually figured it all out. Oh, and another thing too, we had people sleeping on floors in bedrooms. So when you walked into the rooms, you couldn't even really get into the room because my aunt and uncle had their suitcase. There was a bed on the ground, then there's bed stuff everywhere. We had Christmas stuff. Like I said, I was flopping around
They
in the
just
towel.
really like entertaining the new buyers.
Yeah. So, see how diversified this property is.
But you know what? We had both experiences when we were looking, and there was, remember that one place right by the 606 I made you take us? That was like, you would have had to redo the whole basement and take out 3 bedrooms. So it was like, well, we can't buy this.
Oh, yeah.
But it was a nice place, and they had cleaned up, but it was like they were still living there. They were clearly working from home, and they had kids. And usually you come into a property and there's like barely any kid stuff anywhere, which is what we tried to do. I mean, poorly, but it was kind of nice to see like, oh, this is what it looks like with like someone who has kids too, and is like how they live here. I don't know. I feel like I like both. Yeah,
and so this is kind of dumb, but I love a television on. To me, when a TV is on, and I don't really even need to be watching it, but when I'm in another room and I just hear the TV on, like in the living room, I think I'm home. There's something about it that makes me feel, one, not alone, because I grew up with a lot of people, sister, brother, mom, dad. So there's always a television on somewhere in the house. And we also didn't live in really big homes. So, you could probably hear. Yeah. So there is something about it that does sound like a home. And I think that's, especially in that property we're in, there was a woman downstairs who was watching television. And there is something about that where it's like, oh, this just feels like a home. TV's on.
Yeah. And that kind of leads us into number 2, which is create vignettes. It does. It really does. It does, because the whole idea is we're saying depersonalize, but we're also saying, but make it seem like this is how it'd be when you have people over. This is how you'd, like, if you would set your house up for a party where you'd move some chairs differently than normal so that they would be closer to each other so people could talk. That's the same kind of thing that you're going to do to get ready, right? This is what I mean, is like, you don't want to make it feel like so empty, and you want people to come in and feel like, oh, I could see myself living here. And not just like, oh, this is a sterile environment and we could do surgery on their dining table, right? I think it's a balance of that.
Yeah, so basically our reason number 2, so I don't know
Sorry,
if
I really think they are related.
So, because I wanted to do this like a countdown, and I think we just keep going like...
Sorry. We're just really good at connecting everything.
Give us your info. So yeah, creating vignettes, number 2, because I think what ends up happening is that you have to show the space off for all the ways it can function. And for most people, entertaining is a big thing that they want to do in their property. So showing those vignettes, showing the way the property can really function, I think is so important. And oftentimes, your realtor should be doing a professional photographer, hiring a professional photographer to come through your space. And the photographer and the realtor will also help you showcase the best of the space. So maybe moving a table around, or sometimes even angling your couch can be really helpful. And I think that helps create those vignettes that you see online, and that helps you kind of see the space.
Yeah.
How you would party in it.
Yeah, and I think it's sort of like there's this episode of Friends where Joey's on a date with someone and they say, oh, I don't have a TV. And he goes, well, what do you point all of your furniture at? And first of all, I think that's so funny. But the way you live isn't always the way you want to pretend that you're about to live. It's like how, like, if someone asked me how often I eat bread, I'd probably be like, oh, it's not the real answer. And that's how a lot of us are kind of like aspirational in what we're thinking. And that's what you're kind of playing to, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Reason number one or I guess the top reason, the top thing you
need to do.
Yeah. The top thing you need to do before you list your home, but also this is a cheat because it's also while you have your home listed.
It's the worst part.
And it's the hardest part.
Yeah.
You want to keep it clean. I know that sometimes when you have children, it can be really hard. And then to me, as a realtor,
or just anyone else.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a slob. Oh, I am such a slob. And every time you guys come over, I should do some before and after photos of like the night before, the morning of you guys are here, because I like dump and run like crazy on a daily basis. Yesterday, I was home 4 different times. So I went and I did something, came back and worked. Went and did something else, came back and worked. It was just like a lot. And most of it's just showing related or errands, but I do that often. And so for me, it's hard. It would be hard to list because I need to live like that because of my job. And also just because I guess I just can't live super like, hey, if you pick it up, put it down in the right spot. I just don't live like that. But especially with children, you want to make sure that your property is listed at the right price so that you're not having to do a lot of showings, that you're not having to invade your life and your children's life for a really long time. And, when we talked, about reason, or I guess our number 5 on the list, the declutter, oftentimes that means you're putting up kids' toys that maybe they like. And the last thing you want to do is put a bunch of stuff in storage and they're like, hey, where's Popo the bear? And you're like, oh shit, I put up Popo.
I accidentally set the magnet tiles. Yeah, Popo the bear. It's a really mean cop.
Chicago's finest.
Yeah, I accidentally put the magnet tiles. I put the magnet tiles in storage, and it was a problem. It's hard. We actually
The what?
The magnet tiles. One of my
Magna.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said like Make America Great Again.
Oh no, not magnet tiles. The magnet tiles, like magnets.
Magnet tiles.
And it was an issue.
I was like, I don't know you anymore.
But yeah, so it is really hard. We actually just went and stayed in Michigan at my parents' house for like 3 weeks, so that most of the showings could get done.
Yeah, before you moved into your new home.
Yeah.
And I would say that, that is stuff that you have to consider in terms of the price. That's what you have to do in terms of, making the listing lifestyle. Because I think it's hard for people to keep it clean. I think it's hard to have Christmas showings.
Christmas Eve showings, not our favorite showings. I love the idea. Instead of the guy getting to rob your house in Home Alone, it's like, and to your left. I have nightmares about the kitchen in Home Alone, everyone. Just since it's the holiday season, if you want to have a nightmare about having to clean a grout and tile kitchen counter.
Well, that's also why they had pizza and they were eating on what was it, paper plates and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So keep it clean. And okay, so we talked a little bit earlier about the Jizz Palace. So if you've got a lot of tissues and things like that, pick them up. Soap that's out, I think, is acceptable. There's certain things that I cannot handle it when I go into a space and I'm like, oh my god, everything is underneath the cabinets, and that you open the cabinet and you're like, oh gosh, everything's just crammed in here. Live your life. I wouldn't put my toothbrush out on the counter just because I feel
people are gonna be there.
Yeah, they're just gonna be there, and I don't know, I'm a freak about stuff like that. But do things that you need to do to protect your own privacy, your own space, and then you can utilize it when you return to it easily.
Yeah, and there's a few things when you're getting your pictures done, usually you'll have your entire kitchen cabinet countertops completely bare. But like if your coffee maker's out while you have showings, that doesn't matter. They're gonna make you take it off the counter for your pictures. But.
Yeah, so for the photos, you want to try to be as minimal as possible because the small things just, I mean, you've seen, like if you're looking at Zillow or Redfin on your phone, all that little stuff is just kind of hard to tell what it is. It doesn't photograph very well.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is, and the realtor will also tell you this if, you know, when you're doing the photography, and the photographer will also communicate this as well, just as any little thing that you can get off the counter, just get it off the counter. And sometimes it's kind of funny in the photos, you'll see like a bunch of stuff stuffed in the corner, and then they take the other side of the room, and then it all goes to the other side of the room, which is what we had to do in Oakley.
Yeah.
So all these things get kind of shifted around. So when you're actually showing your property, I think there's some things that are acceptable to have out and like live your life, show that you obviously live there. But again, everything that you can do on this list, and everything that you can do, you know, like this is just not even really this scratching the surface on what you can do, but I think this is the stuff to me that makes the most difference. I think it's the easiest that you can have the control of as a listing, as a seller listing your property. So for me, this is stuff that like I think you can be empowered to do. And then all the other things that maybe your agent recommends, whether it's painting or other projects, you know, lean on their expertise, hire a good agent so that they're really helping you walk through this.
Yeah. It's a lot of work to get ready, but hopefully it will be worth your efforts. Yeah.
And if not, if it's not worth like maybe the listing price you get out of it, at least it's easier to move. So there's always like,
That's
I think,
true.
a lot of really great things that you can do on this list that just are going to make your life easier. So, well, thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.